Hello friends, this is Andrine, a Jewish American priestess, and we're coming up on the new moon of Cheshvan, and Cheshvan is the month that we mourn. And how appropriate is that? And I'm not doing very well with what's going on in the Middle East right now, but someone suggested that maybe doing a Hebrew reading would be, I don't know, a way to process some of this. So I'm going to do that today for the new moon of Cheshvan coming up over the weekend. And we're going to do a reading today about, what is it we're mourning? And maybe what's the best route for that right now. So I'm going to do a full Hebrew spread. I'm just going to lay them all down and see what comes up. I'm going to start by taking out the Hebrews that are face down, except for that one. I don't think I'm going to do any reversals today. I'm just going to read them as they lay. Move these aside. Okay. Interestingly, our central issue seems to be, well, two things. We've got, well, we'll go with this because that's really in the center of the whole situation, and we'll come back and look at this. So our central issue is the letter Mem, which, frankly, incredibly appropriate. It's the mother letter of water, and to that extent it corresponds to the winter in the year and the rains, the rainy season, and tears, and a mother's tears in particular. So that does feel like the central issue. It's the letter that reminds us of Miriam, the sister of Moses, and Moses as well. Both start with Mem. Miriam had a special well that followed her through the wilderness, and that well sustained the people through the harsh times. And when Miriam was exiled, that well dried up, and the people were thirsty. So Mem represents a womb. You can see that it looks a little bit like that womb with an opening at the bottom. Something is gestating, something in the water, in the amniotic fluid, in the tears. Something is gestating right now. And the month of Cheshvan, sometimes known as Mar Cheshvan, Mar Cheshvan meaning the bitter Cheshvan. And it's called bitter Cheshvan in part because there are no major holidays during the month, and because we have two deaths of two matriarchs. We have the death of Sarah and the death of Rachel. They both happen in Cheshvan. And the grieving that goes with that seems really appropriate. I'm going to go to the left here, all the way to the left, and we have at the far left, well, slightly above the central line, we have the letter Yud, and Yud is a seed. It's that seed that's been planted in the ground. It's that one point into which the divine contracted in order to create space, in order to create the universe. And it's the first letter of the divine name, the Yud He Vav He, that name which means becoming. So it has the potential for becoming. And because it's on the far left and up part of the reading, it says to me that that there was a seed that was planted a long time ago, a divine seed, a creation that gave way for everything that's come after. One small dot, that point out of which everything exploded. And that's the distant past here. And below the line on that same area we have the tzadi, which is the first letter of the word tzadik, meaning righteousness or righteous person, and tzedek, which means justice. So something in the far past there's been some issues with justice. We know that to be true. There's been injustice on a lot of different fronts in the past here after seeds were planted. Tzadi is the letter that also represents the month of Shvat, which is the month in which we celebrate the New Year of the trees. It has this tree shape to it. It looks like branches coming up from the earth there. So the growth of a thing, growth of justice in particular. And it also corresponds to the tribe of Asher. Asher, who was the son of Zilpah and possibly was named after the goddess, the Asherah, the one who dwells within the trees. It's an amazing correspondence here below the Yud, because we have the Yud He Vav He, and then this sort of representation of the tree, which houses the Asherah. So the feminine divine here in the trees as well. And there's been this miscarriage of justice that is below the line of the Mem, which where the feminine was cut off, where the trees were cut down, where the Asherah, the groves were cut down in the land, and the feminine aspect of the divine was suppressed and forgotten. And maybe that's one of the reasons why we are where we are today, in the mourning space. Just to the right of that, we have the letter Nun, and it's completely upside down. I said I wasn't going to read reversals, but it's hard for me not to say that Nun, which represents humility, has also been turned on its head, that there is no, because it's below the line and reversed, there's this idea of grave inadequacy of humility that isn't happening right now. That's due to this miscarriage of justice, this cutting off of the feminine divine, that the miracles have ceased now. The miracle which begins with the Nun, the word Nes means miracle, that those miracles have ceased, possibly because of this miscarriage of justice, because of the cutting off of the feminine divine, and the understanding that we are part of the earth, that the trees are that which provide air for us. As it says in Torah that the divine breathed breath into us, but it's because of those trees that breath exists at all on this planet. And we've lost the humility for that. We've lost the ability to prostrate ourselves in order to give reverence to that which deserves reverence. Nun is the letter that corresponds to the month of Moon of Cheshvan, and that need for humility, that need for prostration. There is one holiday at the very end of the month called Sigd, which literally means prostration. It's a holiday that comes out of our Beta Israel people in Ethiopia, where there's a deep reverence and prostration for our place in the face of the divine. In this past space, we're missing that. We're missing that humility that allows us to put ourselves in the correct place in relationship to divinity and to the earth. The next letter in our reading here is the letter Lamed. The letter Lamed is also below the line. This is the letter that means aspiration, reaching up above the line, reaching up for connection with the divine. It's the letter that begins the word Lev, meaning heart, mind. And there's been some issue, some miscarriage of being able to connect with our heart minds right now that has led us to where we are. The letter Lamed is the only letter that reaches above the line. And it looks like it's planted deep in the earth, but also reaching up toward the heavens, as one might with their heart and mind. But since it's below the line here, below this central line, I'm feeling like there's been some problem. There's been some big problem with heart and the ability to hear and to think with our hearts. In the ancient days, the idea of lev wasn't just the heart, it wasn't just emotion, but it was also that part of the body that helps us to know what to do. And again, there's been this miscarriage of justice, this inability to be humble that's impacted our heart mind. Above that, we have the letter Beit. And the letter Beit means home. It means house and home and where we dwell. It's above the line, so it says to me that the way we can elevate our heart mind is to pay attention to our home, pay attention to our bodies and to the earth on which we live, wherever we live, regardless of the country or affiliation. If we can connect back with the earth, connect back with our bodies, with the place where we dwell, again, no matter where we are on the planet, is in our body. Maybe connect with our own home. Maybe find ourselves in our space where we feel most comfortable and really connect with that. Take some time for rest. Beit is the letter that corresponds to the day Shabbat, which is the day of rest. So Shabbat, which has the word Beit right in it, Shev and Beit, is to sit in one's home. So maybe it's time for us to just take some time to sit and rest and contemplate what's happening in the world and how to reach back to our hearts here to find our humility, find our connection with our body and back with the earth again. And that'll help us get right here. The next letter, even further down on the reading, is the letter Gimel. It's the letter that means a foot or a camel. It's about moving forward toward justice, and it's very low on the reading. It's below even the letter Tzadi, which means justice. Gimel is the letter that is about walking forward, running toward justice. In fact, running to give tzedakah, which means mutual aid. And it's so far below that we are really missing the mark here. The Gimel is the letter that corresponds to the planet Jupiter in the sky, the planet Jupiter, which is the word tzedek in Hebrew. So that, again, that going back to Tzadi here, we are not being able to run toward justice. We're not being able to move in that direction right now because of whatever misdeeds have happened in the past. That's why we're falling down. This is on its back. Again, I was going to read these in upright position, but it's hard to ignore the fact that the Gimel is on its back. It cannot walk. It's below the line, and it is not being served. It is not being able to walk toward the justice that it needs to. I'm going to go back. So the Mem, as I said, is for water and winter and tears and mothers and wells. The Mem is the mother letter. So it's got that womb space in it, the amniotic fluid. But above it, higher in the reading, we have the Ein Sof. The Ein Sof, that which is without end. That primordial chaos. The Tahom, the deep place that exists before anything is written on the surface. It's like the substrate, the God stuff out of which everything is made and into which everything is carved. And that's the thing to look up toward. That's the thing to look up toward now in this reading as we're grieving, as we are mourning the things that need to be mourned. Look up toward the infinite. Know that there was a time before now, and there will be a time again after now. And this darkness of the moon, that deep, that void, that exists as we come into the new moon of Cheshvan is a place to rest in, to look toward as we wait with this gestation that's happening, this gestation of mourning, this gestation of something that will be born that we don't know what's coming next. This unknown is supposed to be a place of hope and comfort. It's hard right now. But that's what the reading seems to be saying, is we can look up toward the infinite. We can look up toward the belief that the infinite is surrounding us from a distant past into the distant future, that we all came from nothing and to nothing we will return. And I know that isn't always comforting. But on some level, if we can return to the oneness, return to that primordial chaos, we will be one again with the divine. And there's some comfort in there. Going down below, again, we've got the Tav. Tav, very, very low in the reading, even lower than the Gimel. We have the final letter of the alphabet. It speaks to endings. There's something that's coming in the near future. Something is going to come to an end. And that ending is difficult. There's a difficult ending coming. It's very low on the reading. So my guess is that it has to do with the finality, some kind of judgment, some final judgment that's coming. It's hard. It's hard to look at the end. The Taf is the final letter of the word emet, which consists of the first, central, and last letter of the alphabet. Emet, which means truth. It's a stamp or a signature, a seal on the entire alphabet. And so we have this letter Tav saying something is coming to an end. There will be truth. The truth will be revealed at the end. That there will be this judgment, this din. Din meaning judgment. You can see that it looks a little bit like a dalet in the nun, which spells the word din, meaning judgment. And so it has this connotation of death and this connotation of the end of a thing. But it's also the center of the celestial temple. It's that middle space where the divine dwells. I see Tav as corresponding to the moon in tarot, so the fact that we have this new moon coming up is indicated here in the Tav as well. This is coming very soon. Something coming with the new moon, some ending, some judgment. And it is the binary transformation of sovereignty and slavery. So with the things going on right now in the world, where do we land on that continuum between are we sovereign or are we slaves? Are we sovereign in the eyes of the divine, or have we become enslaved to our own greed and habits and power? Again, a challenge, very low on our reading here. And down even further, at the very, very bottom of the reading, we have the letter He. He, which is the first letter of the word Hineni, meaning here I am, present and available for service. This letter is the lowest letter in the reading. Are we able to show up? Are we able to remain present and sit with the discomfort of everything that's happening in the world right now? It's really, really hard. It's very low on the reading. It's very, very challenging to sit with everything. Just hold it, to be present, to show up when we're called, to be able to answer the call of the divine when we hear our name and say, here I am, instead of running away and hiding. I know I'm having challenges with that myself right now. But the letter He is here at the very bottom to say we have to discern what is healthy and what is toxic. And I say that because the letter He corresponds to the liver in the body, the liver which filters the blood. How do we filter all the things that are coming at us right now and discern what is healthy and what is toxic, and what do we need to release in our life right now? What is the thing that will help us to discern? And that thing is sitting in presence. Back to meditation, back to being able to just hold it and mourn with it, because mourning is a process. It's not a thing that's one and done. It's a process that we need to walk ourselves through in order to discern and to filter and to absorb what is useful and what do we need to release. What do we need to release? So that's way down in the reading, way at the very, very bottom. And to the right of that, we have the letter Shin. Again, still low on the reading. It's the mother letter of fire. And you can see it looks a little bit like a fire. It's made up of all of these yuds and all of these vavs all tied together. 3 yuds and 4 vavs. The yuds representing those seeds and the vavs representing connection. The Shin is fire. It's also teeth. It's change and tshuva, which means to return. And it's the first letter of the word Shekhinah, the indwelling presence of the divine. She's very low on the reading here. Again, the feminine divine, not unlike the Asherah with the Tzadi on this side. We've got the feminine divine down here, also very low on the reading. That presence of the divine, that indwelling presence of the divine, that there's some problem with that. There's some challenge with it. There's something that is not working. And we need to find a way to be able to sit with it. We need to find a way to be able to embrace the wholeness and peace. Is the first letter of the word shalom. The word shalom, which means not peace, but wholeness. Not just the absence of war, but something greater than that. The wholeness of all the parts coming together. And that's, again, very low on the reading here. And that concerns me because, of course, for me, I want peace. I want wholeness. I want the presence of the divine in my life. And I want it for others as well. And I'm concerned. Perhaps in this month of Cheshvan, we need to take the time to mourn, to try to find presence, to try to find a way to burn through that which is not serving us. And the last letter in our reading, up high, we have the letter Zayin. And that's, it's funny, it's the letter Zayin. It's Z-A-Y-I-N in English. It's not the word Zion, Z-I-O-N, but it sounds so much like it that it's hard not to take that into account. The letter Zayin is the number 7, which is a completion. It's a completion letter because there are 7 days in creation. And it's a sword and a scepter. You can see it looks a little bit like a sword or a scepter. So it also speaks to sovereignty. It speaks to completion and swords, power, sovereignty. It's very high on the reading. It's the highest letter in the reading. It's the number 7, and it corresponds to magic for that reason, because 7 is this lucky number. It is the magical number that comes with the number of days of creation. It's the Shabbat bride, so it's also the Shekhinah. So we have the Shekhinah low, but we also have the Shekhinah up high in her power, in her great power. The Zayin is the letter that corresponds to the month of Sivan, which is when we receive the Torah, the revelation of Torah. And so it has to do with lightning and power, just really great power coming down from above. So there is great power and authority that comes with the Zayin. And again, that's the highest letter in the reading right now. So as I look at this, their central issue is the mem, the water, the tears that are coming because of the issues that are happening right now in the world. That the ways that we can deal with the miscarriage of justice, the lack of humility, the inability to reach hearts, the inability to rush toward justice, the problem with the judgment that is happening right now, the inability to just show up and be present. And again, this miscarriage of fire, that there's been a problem with fire. The ways to turn that around are to look at the one, look up at the divine, the Yud, that one point. To sit with our bodies in the earth, to focus on the Ein Sof, the infinite, and to really claim our sovereignty right now, to really trust in the magic, to really trust in the divine Shabbat bride. That seventh day of creation, again, Shabbat, we have Shabbat in here twice. Beit, that corresponds to the day of Shabbat, and Zayin, which corresponds to the seventh day of creation, which is also Shabbat. So, as we're contemplating the month of Cheshvan, the things to keep in mind are, though we're having a lot of challenges right now with all of these below-the-line letters, sitting with our tears, sitting with that mourning, that gestation, the amniotic fluid and the tears made up of the same liquid in the body. Really focusing on resting, taking time for ourselves, focusing on the divine. The divine in the form of the Yud, and the divine in the form of the Ein Sof, the infinite. Look at the ways that we can maybe elevate some of these lower letters that have fallen below in our time of mourning. And perhaps if we can do that, if we can focus on the infinite and really focus on the sovereignty of the divine, pay attention to our bodies, give ourselves adequate rest, then we can come to a place where we can sit with the mourning, sit with the presence of the divine, and find ourselves back into a place of wholeness, bring ourselves back up to shalom. I'm going to pull out one more letter from the remaining letters just to get one last message here today. What's our advice here? And we have the letter Dalet. Dalet is a doorway, a gateway. It's the number 4, so it corresponds to the 4 directions, the 4 letters of the divine name. Dalet is this binary transformation of wisdom and foolishness. So how can we turn toward wisdom and walk away from foolishness? How can we consider passing through the doorway? The Dalet it's representative of the birth canal. So after the gestation of the mem, of the water, of the grief, we get to come through and be born out on the other side. Dalet corresponds to the death card in tarot. And death is a doorway. It's a doorway to the other side. It's also the letter that corresponds to the planet Mars in the sky, which is the planet of war. So sometimes we have to go through to get to the other side. And I hate this war, and I hate this death, and I hate this necessity for mourning, but here is where we are. And so as we sit together in mourning in the month of Cheshvan, let's get through it together and really pass through that doorway, and hopefully we'll come out on the other side. I really appreciate you listening with me as we work through this, and thank you so much for all your blessings and thoughts. And let's pray for peace. I'll see you next time.